Hey friends, welcome back to a weekly Wednesday training. Every week, every Wednesday, I go deep on a topic than your typical 60-second reels that you're getting from TikTok. And we go deeper into these conversations and how you can reprogram, rewire, repattern your brain and upgrade your marriage, your family life, and become a better dad and a better husband. And you've got to do the deep work. We know the hacks and the tricks don't work. So that's what my intention is here by doing these weekly trainings, is to give you a little bit more insight. And so over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to go over the most disempowering word, I think, in the English language. I've heard myself say it many times, and I've reflected over and over again, wow, how that just limited me and how I wasn't serving or in alignment with my higher, truer self, and that this word is actually extremely disempowering. And we say it all the time. And here it is. Get ready. Boom. Should. Should is the most disempowering word in the English language, says Jordan Belfort. If you guys don't remember Jordan Belfort, he was the Wolf of Wall Street. There he is. Bam. Everybody remembers that movie. Great movie. There's a lot of good gems in there. But here's the thing, right? The word should. Think how many times you're saying that in your life. Oh yeah, I should have picked up the kids on time, or I should have done this. I should have done the dishes. I shouldn't have overreacted. My wife has heard that so many times. She's like, yeah, I know. I know you shouldn't have overreacted. Stop overreacting. You've said you're going to change. You said you were going to do this and you shouldn't have done it, but you're not doing it. Joel, you're not doing it. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. I don't care about your shoulds. So over the next 10 minutes, I'm going to break down 3 major components of this and what you're going to see about why the word should is actually so disempowering. Number 1, we're going to look at it from a subconscious perspective. What is going on subconsciously in your brain and why it keeps showing up in your life and why you're doing it. Number 2, we're going to look at the emotional response, how this word is just a routine thing that you say. And we're going to talk about how to repattern, how to rewire your brain, because that's the big thing. You're going to keep saying, again, my wife was complaining to me, Joel, you say this all the time. I should have done better. Well, be better. And guys, how many times have you been like, I'm trying to be better. I swear I am doing the work. It's just not working, or I'm doing the work, but man, I'm struggling. And you don't want that. You want to show up powerful, and you want your wife to acknowledge you that you are doing the work and that you are doing these things. So this emotional rewire thing is going to be really valuable for you guys. And then the third component is looking at how it is actually disconnecting us from people. The labeling, the using the word should actually labels us and disconnects us. And I didn't even realize, but everything right now going on in the world with Israel and Palestine and the Middle East, you're going to see why this language, by the power of language, how it can be so instrumental. It can actually fracture us and disconnect us from each other because we're not even aware of these things and the words that we use. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to show you is a video of Sean Dill, one of my business mentors and someone who is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, all that. And we're going to dive into an interview, a short clip of what I did with him. Before I do, I didn't even introduce myself. If you guys don't know me, my name is Joel Evan. I am a best-selling author of the book Ignite, podcast host, life coach, health coach. I run the group First Responder Fathers. It is a group dedicated to men that want to upgrade their marriage and their fatherhood. They want to build deeper connections with their kids and upgrade their marriage, become elite husbands, and serve at the fullest. So if you want to get in that group, simply drop me a line, #hero, and I will send you the details and get you in there, okay? So let's get started with this clip from Sean Dill and why he believes that the word should is very disempowering, and he sees it in the entrepreneur world. And we're going to get into that subconscious aspect of the brain.
We're just like sitting around and now we're just victims of what everybody else is doing because we have no power over our own lives. And that's how forces win. You just disempower the person and get them to do whatever it is that you wanted them to do versus them being empowered, them making decisions based off of information, them doing what's best for themselves and their families in that particular moment. And in order to do that, you cannot be talking about things that we should do. Either we're doing it or we're not.
I mean, like if you just think about the word should, it totally embodies a story behind it. I should.
Well, there it is. I should have done that. Kind of the things we're talking about, right? And how disempowering it is. You actually disempower other people. I never really thought about that in part 3 of this, which we'll talk about the part 3 of how could I be using the word should? How is that disempowering other people? And you're going to see from the labeling that we use in this verbiage, it actually disconnects us from people. We label, we judge, we criticize, and that's what he's talking about. So I think the big thing is thinking about it, that it embodies a story of something, right? As soon as you start saying I should, you're actually denying responsibility. You're actually giving us responsibility away, because you're saying like, yeah, I should have done that, but it kind of was out of my control. Like, I couldn't really help it. Of course, I should have not overreacted, but I just couldn't, because, that kid pissed me off and I was forced to do that. So you're not taking control of what you need to. And when you continue to deny this responsibility, you're creating a feedback loop in your brain. Subconsciously, you're telling yourself, yeah, I'm not really going to do that because I don't want to and I don't have to. And it really wasn't my fault. Why? Because you're denying responsibility. Yeah, I should have done it. I didn't. If you catch yourself saying should, I'm telling you, start catching yourself. You are going to realize, oh yeah, this is a weak word. It is a weasel word, and you are weaseling yourself out of committing to what you know you need to do. And you're copping out, man. You are copping out. So that's number 1. Number 2, let's talk about the emotional rewire. So here's some things and some examples of where you're going to see you probably have said, oh yeah, I should do this. Sometimes our in-laws or someone says, are you coming to Christmas dinner? It could be your own mom or dad. I don't know. And you're like, oh, I really don't want to. I don't want to hang out with my family. I know I should do this. And you start to feel guilty, right? And then the guilt leads to frustration and overwhelm, because you turn into your old self, being a people pleaser, right? And this is a protective reflex that we took on from childhood. And so this protective reflex leads you to what? More resentment, overwhelm, forcing you to do something. You feel like you're forced. You're feeling like you're guilted into doing something. And then you eventually become angry, right? So that's not healthy. Here's another one. And here's another example, right? You come home. I've had this happen. You come home and your wife is frustrated and you're like, hey, what's wrong? And she's like, you should know what's wrong with me. And you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm not a mind reader. Same thing, right? Your wife, she doesn't realize it because she's so frustrated. She's the amygdala, the part of the brain that is our, fight or flight part of the brain, is just taking over. And she can't respond with logic. She's in overwhelm. She feels like her needs aren't being met. And so that is the response. Obviously, this is not a healthy response, because over time, it's going to breed resentment with everybody in the relationship, more overwhelm, more frustration. The guy is going to be feeling like, I don't know what to do. Nothing I do ever pleases this woman. I go home, she wants me to make money, but I come home and then I'm just greeted with grief, and it makes you feel bad. So again, why is it such a bad word? Because we are creating a reflexive response from childhood, and a lot of these childhood wounds will start to show up again, making you feel overwhelmed and frustrated. So how do we rewire the brain? We got to start pausing, catching ourselves. The first piece is the awareness piece, what we're talking about. Become aware of it. Okay, I'm telling you guys, if you're using the word should, become aware of that. That's step 1. Step 2 is start taking a step back and asking yourself, can I respond with logic? And so let's go back to the example of Christmas dinner. Ask yourself, like, do I have the ability to make this happen? Yes or no? Do I want to spend time with these people? Yes or no? There's no maybe, no, like, no, it's just yes or no. You're going to do it or you're not, right? Is the feeling of obligation, is it based on old childhood patterns like we're talking about, right? People pleasing, wanting to be liked, don't want to rock the boat. Are you assuming maybe that your family is going to be angry at you? Shame, right? Maybe you felt that as a kid and you don't want to let them down again. And so you feel disempowered, right? Like Sean Dill said, you feel disempowered. You don't want to actually say what's really on your mind. You're not being authentic. So start accessing that logic part of your brain, and that's going to help with the rewire. And over time, the more you can start laying down the new habits, you're going to create the rewire effect. We go a lot deeper in my program, my coaching program for first responder fathers. We go a lot deeper on this topic, but those are some things that you can learn right now to start bringing the logic part of the brain in, and it's going to help you out a lot. Now, the last part and the last piece of this is the whole labeling and alienating communication, right? I mentioned this, denying responsibility. Most of us grew up with speaking a language, right, that encourage us to label, compare, demand. We say things are either good or bad, right? When we start to do this, we start to really not realize that by doing that, labeling things, we're not actually connecting with what we're feeling and what we're needing. And so again, this language of wrongness is very common, and we create these moralistic judgments about people, right? Think about that when you think about just politicians, or right now the war that is being fought in the Middle East. People are being forced to choose sides. Well, I'm with Palestine, or I'm with Israel, and we feel like, I guess, we're forced to choose sides. And I never thought about this, but there, from the book Nonviolent Communication, the author talks about this. Like, it's actually a very savvy thing that rulers would do back in the olden time, and now you see it in the current time. But it's that when you start to create this divide amongst people, forcing them to choose other sides, right? The author says the more that you're being trained to look outside of themselves, actually yourselves, and you have to look to outside authorities for like a definition of what is right, what is wrong, what's good, what's bad. We are in contact with our feelings and needs. I'm sorry, we're not in contact with our feelings and needs. And when you are not in contact, you become slaves to those people that are telling you what to believe. You don't want that. Nobody wants that. They want freedom, and they want to be, at least they want to believe that they're free and that they're choosing their own destiny, right? And so if you're not aware of what you're choosing and what you're doing and your own responsibility of your thoughts, feelings, and actions, how can you ever move forward and have growth in your relationship with your kids, with your wife, with your family? It's impossible, because you can't communicate your own desires, right? You don't even know. You lack the language that actually creates connection and compassion, because you're so focused on labeling things, and it disconnects you, believe it or not. It's crazy when you think about that on a deep level, right? So again, the three things you want to think about. Number one is, Sean Dill talks about the subconscious, what we're saying at a subconscious level at the brain. That's really important, because 95% of what we do is the subconscious mind. 5% of, and these studies show this, I'm not making this up, 5% is that logical part of our mind that we think we're making these logical decisions. It's not true. Most of it's emotion based. And that's 95% of your brain is the subconscious that is working to protect you in the background. So you got to understand the subconscious at a high level. And that's the only way you're going to repattern your brain also, which leads into the emotional part, right? The emotional rewire. That was part 2 I talked about. And that's the idea. Again, we need to bring logic back into it. How do we do that? We start being aware of what we're doing. And then we start asking ourselves about why is this reflexive pattern? What is it that from childhood that causes me to feel like a people pleaser, or feel guilty, or feel frustrated and overwhelmed, that I have to do this? You don't have to do anything. It's a choice. Every time it's a choice, right? And then number 3, we were talking about the labeling and how that actually disconnects us from responsibility and creating connection, creating compassion with other people by the actual words we use. It's crazy to think about that, but it's true. And that's why I really believe words are so powerful. And I felt like we needed to do this, because I caught myself in the last week saying should, and a coach called me on it, and it really brought into light. I kind of went down the rabbit hole of going, hey, that's right. Like, these are some concepts that I talk about and learn about. But even myself, I found myself saying, yeah, I should have reacted better. And there is no should. There's just do better. And I shouldn't even say do. It's about being, but it's hard to be when we are in a landscape, right? We're created by a culture that creates us in the United States or wherever you're grown. We are really a product of beliefs, religions, family upbringings. All these things really mold us. And then you kind of have to get out of the matrix by doing training like this and hiring coaches and working with some good people. So Anyways, I hope that was helpful for all the men out there that were watching. Again, tune in next week. We'll have another amazing video for you guys. I can't wait for the weekly trainings. And if you're not in my Facebook group, it's a free group for first responders that want to level up their marriage and their family life, their fatherhood, and learn some of the skills, be surrounded by men, community that can hold you accountable and bring you up when things go down. And so if you want to get in that group, simply drop me a line, #hero, and I'll get you in. Look forward to next week to chatting with all of you.